You wake up, and before your eyes are fully open, your mind already knows what the day expects from you. There are tasks, responsibilities, things that need to be handled. But there's no pull toward any of it. Not resistance, not dread, just a strange emotional flatness. You're not exhausted in the usual way. Your body isn't heavy. Your mind isn't chaotic. It's quiet. You tell yourself you're unmotivated, that something must be wrong with your discipline, that other people seem to want things more than you do. But here's the part that bothers you. You want to want something. You remember what it was like to feel drawn toward a future, to feel curiosity tugging at you. And now that signal feels muted. You still do what's necessary. You still function. You still show up, which makes this harder to explain. Because from the outside, your life doesn't look stuck, but internally, something feels paused. You scroll without interest. You start projects without momentum. You reach the end of the day feeling like nothing actually touched you. And the questions start forming quietly. Why don't I care the way I used to? Why doesn't anything feel worth moving toward? Why does everything feel neutral? You might even tell yourself this is maturity, or realism, or burnout. But deep down, there's a tension you haven't named yet. If motivation were the problem, pressure would fix it. If discipline were the problem, structure would fix it. But neither works, and that's where the discomfort comes from. Because when common explanations fail, the mind turns inward. It starts questioning identity. Maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I lost my drive. Maybe this is who I am now. But here's the open question we won't answer yet. What if motivation didn't disappear? What if it stopped speaking because it learned you weren't listening? Let's describe this state more precisely. This isn't dramatic emptiness. It's functional numbness. You're capable. You're reliable. You do what's expected. But internally, there's very little emotional movement. You don't feel strongly pulled toward outcomes. You don't feel deeply resistant either. It's like standing in front of multiple doors and feeling indifferent to all of them. Psychologically, this creates a subtle identity erosion, because desire plays a quiet role in how we know who we are. It tells us, this matters to me, this direction fits me, this feels alive. When that signal weakens, identity starts to blur. You may notice it in decisions. You overthink small choices. You delay big ones. You say, I don't know, more often than before. Not because you lack intelligence, but because nothing inside you feels weighted enough to guide you. This spills into relationships. You might feel emotionally distant without intending to be. You care about people, but not with urgency. Connection feels muted, not absent. And your self-talk quietly adapts. You stop expecting enthusiasm from yourself. You lower emotional expectations. You aim for stability instead of meaning. This pattern often gets mislabeled as depression, but clinically it's different. Depression is heavy, painful, loud. This is quiet, neutral, restrained. In behavioral psychology, this resembles learned disengagement. Not learned helplessness, but learned non-investment. The brain has reduced emotional bedding. Why? Because desire costs energy, it costs hope, it costs vulnerability. And if past experiences taught your system that wanting leads to frustration, loss, or internal conflict, the safest move is to want less. This isn't conscious. No one decides to disconnect from desire. It happens slowly, through repetition. You ignore preferences to be practical. You postpone wants to be responsible. You downplay curiosity to avoid disappointment. And over time, the brain adapts. Not with drama, with efficiency. The result is a life that works but doesn't move. And here's the tension we're still holding open. If this state was learned, what exactly did your brain learn? Here's where the narrative usually goes wrong. People assume something broke, that motivation was lost, that drive disappeared, that something essential failed. But from a psychological standpoint, this pattern isn't damage, it's adaptation. Your brain didn't shut down desire randomly. It recalibrated based on experience. The human nervous system prioritizes efficiency over happiness. If a signal consistently leads to cost without reward, it gets downregulated. That's not weakness, that's learning. Think about moments when desire felt unsafe, wanting something that wasn't allowed, wanting more than felt reasonable, wanting something that conflicted with expectations. Each time desire was dismissed, overridden, or punished, the brain logged the outcome, not emotionally, neurologically. Over time, desire became associated with friction. So your system learned a new rule: neutral is safer than invested. This is especially common in people who learned early to be responsible, adaptable, or emotionally contained. People who became reliable. People who survived by minimizing needs. From a personality perspective, this often shows up in high self-control traits. You became good at regulation. But regulation without expression turns into suppression. And suppression doesn't feel painful, it feels empty. This is why reframing matters. You're not missing something others have. You trained your system differently. And training can be adjusted, but not through force. Which brings us to the mechanism behind all of this.
Because to reconnect with desire, you need to understand why the brain stopped offering it in the first place. And that explanation lives in how motivation actually works. Motivation is not willpower. It's a prediction. The brain constantly asks, is this worth moving toward? That calculation happens in the dopamine system. But dopamine doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to anticipated meaning. Here's the metaphor. Imagine desire as a messenger. Its job is to bring suggestions from deeper parts of the brain to conscious awareness. But messengers stop delivering messages when they're ignored, not emotionally, procedurally. Each time you override a want with logic, dismiss curiosity as impractical, or suppress preference to maintain control, the system learns something important. Not this is wrong, but this is irrelevant. Neuroscience shows that unused neural pathways weaken, not dramatically, gradually. Desire didn't vanish, it went quiet. Mental model. Think of motivation like a recommendation algorithm. If its recommendations are consistently skipped, it stops generating them. This is why forcing action doesn't restore motivation. You're addressing output, not input. The system isn't broken, it's conserving energy based on past data. Which leads to the final contradiction. You feel unmotivated not because you lack desire, but because your brain no longer trusts desire to lead anywhere safe or satisfying. And that trust must be rebuilt, not with intensity, with consistency. Which brings us to the practical framework. This isn't about reigniting passion, it's about restoring signal flow. Principle 1. Lower the risk threshold. What to do? Stop searching for big wants. Notice tiny preferences. Why it works. Small desires don't activate threat detection. They reintroduce dopamine without triggering avoidance. Example: choosing music without optimizing mood. Letting yourself linger on something mildly interesting. Principle 2. Remove outcome pressure. What to do? Allow curiosity without commitment. Why it works. The brain suppressed desire because wanting led to obligation. Separating desire from action restores safety. Example: researching something without planning to pursue it. Principle 3. Delay self-correction. What to do? Pause before dismissing a want. Why it works. This interrupts automatic inhibitory control. Example: letting "that sounds interesting" exist without contradiction. Principle 4. Externalize desire. What to do? Write one want down. Say it out loud. Why it works. External acknowledgement strengthens neural salience. Example: I want quieter mornings. Principle 5. Reduce identity surveillance. What to do? Notice what draws you when no one's watching. Why it works. Intrinsic motivation collapses under performance monitoring. Example: private interests you never explain. Put simply, desire is a conversation. You stopped listening, for good reasons. Motivation returns when the system feels heard again, not commanded, not forced. Reconnection happens through safety, small signals, low stakes, no pressure. That's the model. There was never something wrong with you. There was something you learned to silence. And now you're learning to listen again. Quietly, patiently. Desire doesn't return loudly. It whispers. And if you stay long enough, it starts to trust you again.